We were invited here! We were invited! We were invited by the President of the United States!
On January 6, 2021, like so many others in America, Ian Rogers and Jarrod Copeland were glued to their TVs. Rogers, a mechanic in Napa, and Copeland, a Vallejo resident and salesman who used to work for Rogers, were texting each other throughout the day. They had actually been texting back and forth for months about who they wanted to attack after President Donald Trump lost his re-election.
As I'm watching this, I'm stunned by what I'm seeing.
I think it's fair to say astonishment.
Yeah.
These are images we never expected to see in our great country.
I'm now just hearing and getting from the chief Pentagon spokesman that the D.C. Guard has been mobilized to provide support to federal law enforcement in the district.
I say we storm the Capitol armed on the 19, Rogers wrote to Copeland, according to transcriptions of their conversations released by the California Highway Patrol. We got to organize and do it. Mobilize the 3%. Copy, Copeland responded. Copeland would later tell Rogers that his wife was crying and rubbing his back as he watched Trump supporters storm the Capitol, trying to stop the counting of ballots in the 2020 election. Please don't leave me, Copeland recounted that his wife told him. I don't know what to do without you. But Rogers and Copeland, believing the big lie that the 2020 election was fraudulent, were convinced they may need to sacrifice their lives for what they thought was the greater good.
This is the building at the center of an attack thwarted by the FBI. Two men, 45-year-old Napa man Ian Rogers and 37-year-old Sacramento man Jarrod Copeland, both now facing a slew of federal charges, accused of creating the plan.
These individuals were motivated by
federal prosecutors have said that domestic terrorists like Rogers and Copeland, quote, come out of nowhere. But an investigation by the Vallejo Sun shows that Rogers had several contacts with law enforcement before he'd conspire in a terrorist plot against California Democrats.
Ready when you are.
Rogers had fired automatic weapons at an illegally operating gun club near Fairfield and was arrested for domestic violence in 2020 after a neighbor called police to Rogers' house.
Okay, what's going on there?
I just witnessed some domestic violence. We're a next-door neighbor.
Okay, and...
But the Napa County District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute on that alleged domestic violence incident. As a result, law enforcement never searched Rogers' home, which would have turned up nearly 50 guns, including several illegally fully automatic weapons. Rogers and Copeland subscribed to an extreme anti-government ideology called the Three Percenters, which started in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected president, and whose adherents believe they're preparing for a second civil war.
The new King Barack and his minions have determined to disarm us, and we must determine to resist them.
Three Percenters were involved in standoffs with the federal government, bombing plots across the country, the attempted kidnapping of the governor of Michigan, and the January 6th attack on the Capitol. But when Solano County Sheriff's deputies were revealed to have displayed the symbols publicly, their sheriff said that he had never heard of them.
We did have, so when this came to light, and I'm sure many people are like me, I really didn't even know what a 3%er was before January 6th.
No, I didn't either.
Honestly, I didn't. And although the community says we don't believe that, I'm telling you.
My name is Brian Kranz. I'm a reporter with the Vallejo Sun. In this episode, we're going to break down and update a story my colleague Scott Morris has been reporting on regarding extremism in the North Bay. That's included how President Donald Trump's claims of a stolen election inspired a thwarted plot to attack political targets in California, how the attackers' radical right-wing ideology has been gathering power for years, and the evidence that suggests it may even be present in Solano County law enforcement.
County sheriffs are actually particularly important in the 3%er ideology, given that they are the ones who are seen as being on the ground and understanding the community they're operating in, where the federal government can't really, they say the federal government can't really be able to govern people properly at the local level.
Go back to the scene, AC, that shots fired. Go back to the scene.
Let's keep this momentum going.
3% movement that I founded has been denounced by that paragon of moral virtue, Bill Clinton. And I am a perennial honorable mention in the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of dangerous folks.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, which, among other things, tracks hate groups across the United States, recently reported that following the January 6th insurrection, hate and extremist groups worked feverishly with like-minded right-wing leaders and media to undermine American democracy. In its most recent newsletter, the SPLC said while the numbers of hate groups continue to decline in the last 6 years, quote, the extremist ideas that mobilize them now operate more openly in the political mainstream, end quote. One of those groups is the 3%er movement. It was founded in 2008 by Mike Vanderboegh, a longtime militia member from Alabama who feared the Obama administration would attempt to seize guns by force, threatening a second civil war.
Is Mike Vanderboegh here?
Vanderboegh remained active in the movement until he died in 2016. Here he is speaking at a gun rally in Hartford, Connecticut in 2013.
Barack Obama supports the Second Amendment just about as much as Adolf Hitler appreciated Jewish culture or Joseph Stalin believed in individual liberty.
The 3%er name that Vanderboegh came up with refers to a false belief that only 3% of American colonists overthrew the British in the Revolutionary War. They believe that it would only take about 3% of Americans today, or about 10 million people, to overthrow the federal government, which they see as a tyrannical, occupying power.
The new King Barack and his minions have determined to disarm us, and we must determine to resist them. No one wants a new civil war, except apparently the anti-constitutional tyrants who pass these laws and their media toadies who cheer them on. But one is staring us in the face. Let me repeat that. Civil war is staring us in the face. To think otherwise is to whistle past the graveyard of our own history. We must, if we wish to avoid armed conflict, get across this message to the collectivists who have declared their appetites for our liberty, our property, and our lives. When democracy turns to tyranny, the armed citizenry still gets to vote.
Vanderboegh himself had been involved in the early militia movement, which came about under Bill Clinton in reaction to his assault weapons ban. So he was kind of trying to modernize the movement in a sense, and so 3%er kind of became this sort of kind of grassroots movement, right-wing movement.
Shane Bauer is an award-winning investigative journalist who went undercover with a faction of the 3%ers in 2016 while they were doing rogue border patrols in Arizona. Vallejo Sun reporter Scott Morris recently spoke with Bauer about that reporting.
And you would see, trucks with the Roman numeral 3 was kind of how it was represented. So it was this kind of signal, that they could recognize each other with. From that movement, there started to be people that tried to form actual militias from them to take it beyond this kind of vague idea and actually organize. So that was 3% United Patriots is one of the groups that did that.
And this is all pretty much direct reaction to the election of Barack Obama, right?
Yeah. During the Bill Clinton presidency, there's the Oklahoma City bombing. Before the Oklahoma City bombing, there was a huge rise really the start of these militia groups, and they were growing fast. And then the Oklahoma City bombing happened, which kind of created a backlash, against this militia movement. And then, Bush became president, and they really kind of, were very minimal during the Bush years. There wasn't really much militia activity. And then when Obama was elected, there was a huge resurgence. There were suddenly hundreds of militia groups that formed in reaction to his presidency, basically.
When Bauer became interested in reporting on militias, he sought them out through Facebook and quickly built a network of people interested in a violent uprising against the federal government.
Basically, what I did was I noticed looking around the internet, looking at Facebook, that there are a ton of, militia pages. So I started a new account. I used my real name, but I didn't really put much information about myself, on the Facebook page. And I just kind of start liking militia Facebook groups. And the nice thing about using Facebook to search for things is that it will eventually, if you like enough things or send enough friend requests, somebody will start suggesting to you pages to like. So it was just sending me these militia pages. I linked up with some groups in California, went to some trainings. I noticed that a group called the 3% United Patriots had pages in states around the country. They, along with some other groups were trying to do a similar thing, were kind of trying to create like a national type militia. Where in the past, say in the Bill Clinton years, militias were all kind of hyper local. There was kind of a new theme during the Obama presidency where there was an attempt to create kind of national militias that had local branches. I saw on the 3% United Patriots page that they were posting an operation. It was called Operation Spring Break, and it was a closed page. And I just kind of clicked the button to request access to the page, and they just let me in. And there was a post in there that said, we're doing this operation on the border. Who's in? So I just responded to it and said, I'm in. I didn't know anybody in the group, and then they post the coordinates that we're supposed to go to. And I basically, fly to Arizona, rent a truck. I bring a rifle, camo, the whole kind of militia getup. And I drive to the coordinates. It's kind of out in the desert near the U.S.-Mexico border. And I show up at this kind of like militia base.
The 3% United Patriots, also known as 3UP, was a group founded in Colorado by Mike Morris, who went by the name 50 Cal during the Arizona operation. Mike Morris also was involved in the 1990s militia movements. Here he is speaking at a recruiting event in Colorado that was posted to YouTube 2 years ago.
I've been involved in the Patriot/militia movement for nearly 30 years. I got involved in Colorado's militia in my teens, and then I headed off to the Marine Corps.
Mike Morris said he was inspired to start 3UP after he met Mike Vanderboegh.
After Terry Response Team, I was involved with some of the Colorado militia groups and some of the other militia groups around the country, Michigan militia, that kind of thing. And then I got involved with 3%ers, and I actually met and spoke with Mike Vanderboegh, who really coined the term 3%.
And by then, Mike Morris was leading the largest 3%er group in the country.
So we've seen numerous 3% groups pop up across the country. 3UP, what we all are part of here, is still the largest 3% group in the nation right now. And Colorado has always been kind of the leading state in that organization. Things that happen here are oftentimes then recreated in other states. So, we started an RRT group here, a rapid response.
What was your sense of 3UP as like an organization? Because you said most of these guys were coming down from Colorado, including Mike Morris, 50 Cal. Mm-hmm. It seems that this organization was kind of centered in Colorado, but what was its reach at that point? Did you get any sense of that, or kind of how broad it was?
It's hard to tell how broad it was because it's hard to judge from Facebook, because what they would do and what some other groups did was somebody basically starts a page for every state, and they kind of try to start groups by doing that, so they'll make a California page and say, hey, let's get a training together. Who's up for it, and they basically bring these people together through the internet. It's kind of a precursor to the much more internet savvy kind of alt-right type people. The militia guys generally are not big internet people, but 3UP was maybe kind of more the cutting edge of that.
Mike Morris knew the value of Facebook as a recruiting tool.
But one thing is, 3UP is not a Facebook group. Facebook is merely a tool that we use to help throw out some messages, and it's a great recruiting tool. But I see it all the time on Facebook where people say, well, what's the plan?
Yeah, they're basically, trying to kind of organize groups by creating these Facebook pages. And they have people who are following their main page that are interested in militias. So they will then basically say, hey, Northern California, who's going to start a training, step up kind of thing.
There was, in fact, a faction of the 3-Up operating in California. Ian Rogers opened his repair shop, British Auto Repair of the Napa Valley, in 2007. The business is on a dead-end street surrounded by other car businesses with an outdoor wine garden on the corner. It's just a few blocks from the Napa River in downtown Napa, where dozens of high-end restaurants serve wine grown in the surrounding valley. Throngs of visitors flock there every weekend for a night out. The Napa Valley wine train chugs past Rogers Building every day. The FBI tip that implicated Rogers in a bombing plot also said that he belonged to 3-Up. He was active in a private Facebook group called 3-Up CA Zone 4, Zone 4 being the San Francisco Bay Area, which had 24 members in 2020. The tipster also told the FBI that only 3-Up members were allowed to shoot at Twin Sisters Gun Club, a 160-acre wooded plot just outside of Fairfield in western Solano County. A video that allegedly shows Roger firing an illegally fully automatic AK-47 with a 75-round drum at Twin Sisters was provided to the FBI.
Ready when you are.
The Vallejo Sun published it last year. Solano County authorities found out the club was operating illegally in 2016. Its owner, Facebook engineer Thomas Bach, engaged in a lengthy legal fight in an attempt to overturn the decision before selling the property in 2018. But neighbors complained that they continued to hear gunfire well after it was supposed to be closed. One neighbor sent a video to the county that showed him narrowly avoiding being shot.
I can hear the bullets hitting the tree over next to me when he fires. Shit, 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 shit! Shit! Fuck! Holy shit, that was close. Oh, fuck. Oh, man. This is what I'm talking about.
Right now, a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency. The business tycoon and TV personality.
Following the presidential election of Donald Trump in 2016, far-right extremists grew more emboldened. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists held a Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, which included some participants wearing 3%er emblems.
You will not replace us! You will not replace us! White pride! White pride! There's nothing wrong with being proud of who you are.
Since then, 3%ers have been implicated in several violent plots across the country.
Militias have long been active in the U.S., but they've been recently energized by two key events. Last year's occupation of the Malheur Wildlife Refuge in Oregon by anti-government activist Eamon Bundy, and the 2014 standoff in Nevada, where Bundy's father, backed by militiamen, squared off with federal officials over grazing rights on public lands.
PBS NewsHour's PJ Tobia asked one 3%er militia leader in Georgia about what Trump's election meant for his movement.
For the Georgia 3%ers, Donald Trump's election sends a signal.
With a Trump victory, that gives me a little bit of hope where I had none, that we can turn the tide against these communist, Marxist, socialist ideas of governing.
On August 5th, 2017, about a week before the Unite the Right rally, former Sheriff's Deputy Michael Hari and two other men planned and executed the bombing of a mosque in Minnesota. Hari identified himself as the leader of a white supremacist militia group called the White Rabbit 3% Illinois Patriot Freedom Fighters Militia on a YouTube page, where he spoke directly into the camera while wearing a ski mask.
Friends, our country has never been in the kind of danger it is right now. We've never seen this before. It's never been so bad as it is today. Let's not let it get any worse. Let's take a stand for liberty right now. I'm asking every one of you to consider your children and your family. and the future of this country. Yes, we had a victory with Trump. That's a great thing. I'm not sure that Trump's 100% devoted to what we are, but he seems like a good guy. He seems like he's on our side. He's one man. He's at the top. He's all by himself. He's being resisted left and right by the Justice Department. Let's go over the facts. We just learned that
Hari was convicted of federal bombing and hate crime charges in 2020. On August 12, 2017, the FBI arrested Jerry Varnell after he attempted to detonate what he believed to be a bomb in a van that he'd parked in an alley next to an Oklahoma bank.
Now, according to court documents, Varnell claimed he was acting on behalf of a group called the 3%ers.
That group has hundreds of members right here in Oklahoma. Fox 25's Jennifer Falsetti has been researching this group. She is live.
He was later sentenced to 25 years in prison. In 2020, members of an extremist militia group were charged with the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Court records indicate that at least 2 of the alleged participants, Adam Fox and Barry Croft, are associated with the 3%er movement.
Sources say Croft is a President Trump-hating, anti-government true believer who allegedly wanted to murder government officials in multiple states. We're told Croft is part of the anti-government movement called the 3%ers.
A jury deadlocked on charges against Croft and Fox in April, and they are expected to be retried. Meanwhile, Ian Rogers' politics grew even more radical, and police were twice called to his home, first by his wife, and then by a neighbor who said he had witnessed an assault.
Napa dispatch, sir.
Rogers' wife called police on March 29, 2020. She told a dispatcher that Rogers had cut off her credit card and threatened to cut off her cell phone service the next day and to throw her out of the house in 2 weeks.
And right now he's trying to kick me out from the house because he thinks that it's his house.
Rogers' wife also advised the dispatcher that he was armed.
And then your fiance, does he have any weapons?
Yes, he has the weapon, but he has the permission. He has the permit.
He has a permit for what? A gun?
No. Yes, a gun.
Do you know where the gun is? It is on his person, or is it locked away?
Gun is locked away. I'm not concerned about the gun. He is always very careful with the gun.
Okay. What is his name?
Police responded to the home but did not arrest Rogers at the time. Then on August 18, 2020, police responded to Rogers' home again, this time after a neighbor called 911 and said Rogers had dragged his wife across their driveway while they both seemed to be dressed for bed.
Okay, what's going on there?
I just witnessed some domestic violence. We're a next-door neighbor.
Okay, and what were you seeing exactly? Were they physically fighting, or is it verbal?
Yeah, well, to a point where he was chasing the lady out of his house, and he dragged her onto the floor, and then they all went back inside, and her son even came out, asking to call the police. Her son.
Okay, how old is the son?
He's 10 years old.
Okay, all right. And where is he at now? Is he with you?
No, he went back into the house.
Okay,
They all went
all right.
into the house, and then now their dogs are running loose in the courtyard.
Okay, all right. And any weapons seen?
I didn't see any weapons, and I asked what was wrong with them, and he said that she was just acting crazy, so I thought...
That who was acting crazy?
He said that she was acting crazy.
Okay, all right. Any influence of drugs or alcohol to your knowledge, or?
Yeah, I know that he drinks. He's a heavy drinker.
Okay, all right.
According to the American Canyon Police report of the incident, officers arrived and spoke to Rogers' wife, who said that Rogers had become angry and yelled at her when she had asked him about him talking to another woman. She said that she would call 911 if he did not stop yelling and left the house. Rogers followed and tried to take her phone. The report says she fell down in the driveway, but she told officers that Rogers didn't push her down and that she didn't want him arrested. Officer Marcus Solis noted in his report that Rogers' wife had a 1-inch gash on her head, dried blood in her hair, and a scrape that, quote, appeared to be road rash on her right shoulder. Rogers was arrested on suspicion of felony domestic violence and a misdemeanor for trying to prevent his wife from summoning help. Kurt Braddock is an assistant professor of communications at American University and a fellow in the school's Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab. He said that researchers are beginning to discover a link between a history of violence, particularly domestic violence, and violence committed with political motives.
There is a really, really interesting body of research that's just only recently starting to get built that shows that a lot of individuals, especially lone actor, individuals who operate on their own, they tend to have some background of violence, and oftentimes that is domestic violence. There seems to be a connection, given what the research shows so far, between aggression towards women and aggression towards others in the home and proclivity for political violence down the road.
The Napa County District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute Ian Rogers. In an email, Napa County Assistant District Attorney Paul Jarrod told The Sun, quote, "The case was rejected for a lack of sufficient evidence," end quote. Had the case been prosecuted, Rogers would have been forced to surrender his guns, and investigators may have discovered his large collection of illegal weapons months before he would allegedly plan to use them in a politically motivated attack.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term.
After Joe Biden was elected president in November 2020, President Trump refused to admit his defeat, instead spreading lies and conspiracy theories that the election had been stolen through fraud. That included speaking at a Pennsylvania state Senate hearing on November 25th, 2020.
This election was lost by the Democrats. They cheated. It was a fraudulent election. They flooded the market.
Trump's election loss and his statements questioning the legitimacy of the vote specifically motivated Ian Rogers and Jarrod Copeland to plan violence, according to their eventual prosecutors. In text messages released through court filings and public records requests, Rogers and Copeland discussed a variety of potential targets, including the California governor's mansion, the Democrats' headquarters in Sacramento, and the offices of Twitter and Facebook, the latter of which's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, Rogers described with an anti-Semitic slur. "If they don't listen to Trump, they will hear us," is what records show Copeland texted Rogers on November 30th, 2020. Copeland said in another undated message, quote, "We don't need to win over 50,000 people. We need 500 pissed-off patriots that want America back," end quote. On an unknown date, Rogers texted Copeland that, quote, "I hope 45 goes to war. If he doesn't, I will," end quote.
For the first time, to swear an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath was put to test on January 6, 2021.
The January 6th House Select Committee was formed after the 2021 attack on the Capitol to investigate how the events unfolded and, in a recent series of public hearings, have documented how Trump's words, which he knew to be wrong, motivated his supporters to violence.
Donald Trump lost the presidential election in 2020. The American people voted him out of office. It was not because of a rigged system. It was not because of voter fraud.
The committee has documented how Trump's own advisors told him in the days and weeks after the election that he had legitimately lost. That included people like then Attorney General Bill Barr.
Repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that I did not see evidence of fraud.
Trump's supporters threatened violence even against Republican elected officials who refused to go along with Trump's stolen election claims. In one committee hearing, Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers testified that after he refused to comply with Trump's demands that he overturn Arizona's election results, a man wearing 3%er insignia threatened one of his neighbors.
I don't know if I should name groups, but there was one gentleman that had the 3 bars on his chest, and he had a pistol.
The committee pointed to a tweet Trump sent on December 19th. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th, Be there will be wild! ! As leading to coordination between far-right groups to commit violence during the joint session of Congress to certify the results of the 2020 election.
Dr. Donnell Harvin, who was the Chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence for D.C., told the committee how his team saw Trump's December 19th tweet unite violent groups across the spectrum on the far right.
We got derogatory information from OSINT suggesting that some very, very violent individuals were organizing to come to D.C. And not only were they organizing to come to D.C., but they were these groups, these non-aligned groups were aligning.
The groups that answered Trump's call and coordinated their activities included another national militia, the Oath Keepers, and white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, and the Three Percenters.
December 19th at 10:22 a.m., just hours after President Trump's tweet, Kelly Meggs, the head of the Florida Oath Keepers, declared an alliance among the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and the Florida Three Percenters, another militia group. He wrote, "We have decided to work together and shut this shit down." Phone records obtained by the Select Committee.
Prosecutors say that Ian Rogers and Jarrod Copeland were even more motivated to commit violence while watching the events of January 6th. Rogers texted Copeland the following day, quote, "Why are we the only ones willing to fight for this country? I don't get it." Later that day, Copeland texted Rogers, "I got war paint on my ding-ding and I'm ready for battle. Time for war, bro. I see no other way." Copeland responded, "I agree. I'm thinking SAC offices, first target," Rogers wrote. Then maybe Bird and Face offices, which prosecutors believed referred to Twitter and Facebook. But the FBI had already been alerted to Rogers and Copeland, and the two wouldn't be able to carry out any attack. On January 15th, 2021, investigators with the Napa County Sheriff's Office and the FBI raided Rogers' home and business, where they discovered a cache of nearly 50 guns, including illegal automatic weapons, some 15,000 rounds of ammo, and several pipe bombs.
Napa Dispatch, Amanda.
Hey, Amanda, this is Cecil Brown from the Sheriff's Department.
Hi.
I'm on the search warrant on action in Napa.
Are you guys still on that card?
Yes, we're still here, and very soon we're going to destroy some destructive devices. So you might get calls about explosions.
But Rogers' defense attorney, Jess Raphael, told NBC Bay Area that Rogers was not prone to violence and his pipe bombs were just for entertainment.
He does not belong to any of these groups. He is not of a violent disposition, but when he drinks, he spouts off.
Prosecutors say that Copeland learned of Rogers' arrest the next day and reached out to a leader in the Three Percenter group they belonged to. That leader advised him to delete his communications with Rogers, and Copeland agreed. Prosecutors have not named or charged anyone else associated with the group. The next day, the Sheriff's Office and FBI searched Copeland's home in Vallejo, where they recovered more guns and some steroids.
Hey, good morning. It's ISU S3.
Hi.
Could we please get a unit to do 1148 for us?
All right, where at?
We are at 1170 Jack London Drive in Vallejo.
All right.
And they don't have to get here like immediately. They can, if it takes them 20 minutes, that's fine. And we're out on a joint operation with the FBI. I don't know if there's a log or anything started. Probably not.
But when they searched Copeland's electronic devices, his communications with Rogers had been erased. On July 7th, 2021, Rogers and Copeland were indicted in federal court for conspiring to maliciously destroy a building by fire. Rogers was also charged with possessing pipe bombs and machine guns, and Copeland was charged with destruction of evidence. In May, Rogers pleaded guilty to conspiracy to destroy a building by fire or explosives and weapons charges, and is awaiting sentencing. His state charges are still pending. In the weeks and months after January 6th, numerous people have been arrested, charged, and convicted for the attack on the Capitol. That includes the leaders of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, who have been charged with seditious conspiracy, and others associated with the Three Percenter movement. 4 Southern California men affiliated with the Three Percenter movement were charged with conspiracy. Another defendant in the same indictment was the former police chief of La Habra.
Stop the steal! Alan Hostetter is well known in Orange County and elsewhere for his belief that the presidential election was stolen from Donald Trump. This is the former La Habra police chief at a West Coast Stop the Steal rally after Donald Trump lost the election.
The enemies and traitors of America, both foreign and domestic, must be held accountable, and they will. There must be long prison terms, while execution is the just punishment for the ringleaders of this coup.
But federal prosecutors say his activity went beyond free speech. They say he and
a Texas 3%er who entered the Capitol with a pistol and zip ties was found guilty of 5 criminal counts in March, following the first jury trial stemming from the attack. He is facing up to 15 years in prison.
In a guilty verdict, it could be a bellwether for the hundreds of cases arising from last year's riot. Here's CBS's Scott McFarland.
Guy Reffitt of Wiley, Texas, never made it into the Capitol on January 6th, but armed with a semi-automatic handgun and zip ties, he confronted police outside the building and waved the mob in, later boasting of his exploits.
I don't care. Pelosi's head's hitting every step on.
But over the years, some law enforcement officers, including in Solano County, have demonstrated support for far-right movements like the 3%ers.
Tonight, a Solano County Sheriff Sergeant and brother of actor Chris Pratt is accused of showing support for a right-wing extremist group. Sergeant Cully Pratt, seen here, posted a wooden carving on social media that made references to the 3%ers movement.
In February 2021, the Vallejo Sun's Scott Morris reported that 3 members of the Solano County Sheriff's Office had posted overt support for the 3%er movement on Facebook and Instagram.
Now, but tonight, the Solano County Sheriff is defending his employees. In a statement to CBS 13, Sheriff Tom Ferrara said, quote, "I am not aware of one instance where any of these employees acted in a manner that was portrayed in this article." He goes on to say the employees told him that their intention was to support the Second Amendment and the U.S. Constitution.
Pratt later released his own statement.
Exclusively to Fox 40 tonight that says, quote, "I am not a member associated, nor do I condone extremist, radical, or anti-government views. I do not support hate or racism towards anybody. I do not condone violent or seditious behavior," end quote. That statement coming in response to an investigation.
Here's Scott, also speaking to Fox 40 out of Sacramento.
The 3%ers is a group that has been involved in bombings across the country, that has been involved in plots to commit violence. The leader of the 3%er group was part of the plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan last year. You know, they were involved in the attack of the Capitol. I think that there's more to it than for them to say that this is just about Second Amendment support, that, you know, this is a group that they should explain why they are supporting overtly on their social media.
Scott further discussed his reporting in an interview with KQED, describing how Deputy Dale Matsuoka, in particular, did little to hide his affinity for the 3%ers.
So the main people in the story is Sergeant Roy Stockton, who had a metal crafts and leatherwork stores that he was selling 3%er memorabilia online. He'd been doing that for quite a while, and he had Instagram accounts for both of these stores and would frequently share 3% images and messages, and some of them condone violence. He shared one in 2016 with a bunch of guns and said, "Getting ready for the election tomorrow." His good friend is Sergeant Cully Pratt, who happens to be the actor Chris Pratt's brother, and he has a woodworking business, and he similarly sells kind of political items through his woodworking business, and including one thing that he made for Sergeant Stockton, and he seemed very proud of, that was a board with a 3% symbol on it and an AR-15 rifle to hang on that with the words "will not comply." And then the last person that we reported about is Deputy Dale Matsuoka, and he's the sheriff's homeless outreach coordinator. So he's been with the sheriff's office a long time. He has a very prominent position there. I mean, his stuff was just very blatant, 3% all over his Facebook page, and then lots of photos of himself in uniform. So these guys just were not hiding their affiliation with the sheriff's office at all. It surprised me that it was very overt. I've sort of seen kind of hints of 3%er activity in Solano County in particular for a while. I hadn't connected it directly to any law enforcement officers until I saw that particular Facebook profile, but I suspected there might be some overlap.
Kurt Braddock, the American University researcher, said that some 3%ers see local law enforcement, and more specifically sheriff's offices, as more legitimate than the federal government.
Well, the 3%ers themselves, their ideology surrounds really the idea that they have to defend the Constitution, that the federal government can't really protect us, and that the law of the land should be law enforcement more at the local level. County sheriffs are actually particularly important in the 3%er ideology, given that they are the ones who are seen as being on the ground and understanding the community they're operating in, where the federal government can't really they say the federal government can't really be able to govern people properly at the local level.
Following the revelations of 3%er support in the Solano Sheriff's Office, community activists then requested that Solano County supervisors create an oversight board of the Sheriff's Office under recently enacted legislation, AB 1185.
Good morning and welcome to the Solano County Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Madam Clerk, roll call.
The Board of Supervisors held a meeting in November 2021 where Sheriff Tom Ferrara, for the first time, publicly discussed 3%ers and other issues in his office.
We did have, so when this came to light, and I'm sure many people are like me, I really didn't even know what a 3%er was before January 6th.
No, I didn't either.
Honestly, I didn't. And although the community says we don't believe that, I'm telling you, I didn't know what a 3%er was, had no idea. So as this thing proceeded along, it appeared to us it was more of a Second Amendment support after January 6th. Totally changed that. So since January 6th, we've had training. We brought 2 training providers in to talk about extreme organizations, and so we've had the FBI come in. And so what I'm trying to do is make all.
Ferrara went on to say that after January 6th, if a deputy continued to display 3%er symbols, he would fire them.
I will tell you, though, if there was any of those symbols after January 6th, now that we know what that means, I would discipline and remove them from employment.
All the aforementioned deputies had 3%er symbols on their social media pages after January 6th. Deputy Matsuoka even left them up after Scott's initial article came out. Ferrara also said that the FBI cleared his deputies, but the FBI disputed that. Ferrara later said he was misunderstood.
When I spoke to the FBI when this first came up, I had asked, were any of my people in the Capitol on January 6th? The answer was no. Were any of my people on an active watch list that, for extremist sites? The answer is no. I have nothing that's changed that since then. We've done some education for our employees to say this is what extreme groups are. Here's the symbols they show, and you need to be aware of that. I do tell every employee.
The sheriff insisted that his organization didn't have any problems, and he was just the victim of a biased media.
The reason why I'm taking it a little sensitively is my organization is extremely well run.
Right.
And what we have is a biased media that takes, and like there's several of these things I can't talk about. I would love to get up here, and when you said we want to know what's going on in the sheriff's office, I'd love to come up and tell you, but I'm limited in some of the things I can talk about because of active lawsuits and this and that. I guarantee you, when the one that's going on now, when that's ended, it's not going to be what the folks are speaking about because the truth is different.
Right.
And I can't share that publicly.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Yeah.
The supervisors, one of whom is a former sheriff's lieutenant, declined to enact any oversight. This has been a production of the Vallejo Sun. This episode was reported and written by Scott Morris. I, Brian Kranz, was its host, producer, and editor. Together with our colleague John Glidden, we are the Vallejo Sun, the most productive newsroom covering Vallejo and Solano County here in Northern California. All of our reporting is free for everyone to read and listen to, so the best way you can make sure relevant news comes out in a timely fashion is by becoming a member of the team. Learn more about subscribing at vallejosun.com/membership. Thanks for listening.